Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve. Sorry for the crotch shot there, that's a good start. I find myself in the painted world, as you can see. A couple updates to the painted world, but there's an interesting thing, judging by the thumbnail that this will probably have. Look in the sky here. This is the painted world. Right now we're in the unmodded version of Dark Souls Remastered, so none of my alterations. And look in the sky. I found an interesting find. That if you look in the sky, you're like, oh, okay. It's just kind of like, bluish, It's kind of bluish, hanging out. Well, I found out something interesting. So we'll be right back with my modded version. And we're back. This time you get an ass shot. That's what this channel can provide. Oh, what the hell is going on here? Okay, that's some weird visual oddities. But as you'll notice in the sky, there are clouds. And you might be thinking to yourself, what the hell? Did this jackbag son of a bitch? Okay, I don't know if that's an actual insult, but probably somewhere. Add clouds. What an artistic change that is ruining the... No. So what I found interesting, I was actually kind of goofing around with the lighting settings to try to really dial them in, And I found out something interesting. That in the sky, and because I've been in the Painted World map in DS Map Studio a lot, and I noticed something really weird. So let's load in to that real quick. Also, don't look at my different Microsoft Paint things that I was cropping. I was sending that to my brother that they released Battlefront 1 and 2, or they're going to release Battlefront 1 and 2, the OGs, the classics, on Switch, PC, PlayStation, Xbox. Like, are you fucking kidding me? It's fucking awesome. Also, I'm still buzzing from the Shadow of the Erd Tree trailer. So, maybe go watch my reaction on that. I thought it was pretty cool. Let's load up the Painted World. Now, we're actually in a project for the unmodded game, but that's fine. Now, look in the sky, and what do you see? A shit ton of clouds. And I must remind you, this is the unmodded version. So I have not added these clouds. And what I find interesting is that because you might be wondering, like, oh, well, maybe they just do that for skyboxes, and they just don't display the clouds. No, there's actually plenty of maps that do not have moving clouds in the skybox. Like, this was a definitive active choice by FromSoft to add these clouds. Like, the top layer, that layer, and that layer, and not only that, but to have them moving. So that's the big difference, is that, you can have a skybox where it's just a static image of, like, clouds, and that's what they do in Undead Burg. But Undead Burg also has a separate cloud layer that is actually moving, right? But Firelink Shrine, by default, doesn't have moving clouds, doesn't have a whole lot in the skybox, to be honest. Valley of the Drakes is the ultimate example, where it's literally just the color teal. There's no image, there's no clouds, there's nothing. And so they literally put this in, but if you'll notice, the fog ID is set to 4. So when I was goofing around, here's what led me to this. Basically, I was looking at, when I was in the Painted World, I noticed that this landmass, which I just posted a banger tweet about, we can't let flat earthers know about the Painted World, because it is one big, like, cylinder. Don't let them know. They can't know. But anyway, I noticed that the landmass here was not mixing with the fog of the fog ID, so it, like, really stood out. And that's a classic problem in DS1, but admittedly it has continued on to, like, DS2, DS3. It's a known, like, FromSoft thing where the fog cut off, and sometimes they'll put the wrong fog ID on something, essentially. And because this area was like the prototype for DS1, and I do feel like it just never got revisited, because there's some other interesting thing I'll bring up in just a second. But yeah, they had it set to a fog ID of 4. And so I was tinkering around and I actually like changed the fog ID for the landmass, the trees, and the clouds, and I got them to all sit together in the scene correctly, which I'll pop back into the game in a second. But yeah, like these clouds have always been there. And for some reason, it just clicked with me because I've been in this map so often, flying around, but my brain never once was like, looked up in the sky and was like, what the fuck? Now, admittedly, when we were in the unmodded version, you can barely see them. You can see the movement just a tad, but they have crushed it so much that you can't even tell that there's moving clouds. So for me, I kind of have to infer from that and go, they obviously put in moving clouds for a reason. So I won't harp on it for too long, but I found that interesting. I also think it looks really cool. So in the distance now, you actually have the landmass match the scene, whereas before it was like awkwardly had a different fog param, so it would really stand out. And the clouds here, you'll notice, still fit within how the sky should look. IMO, I think it still looks quite decent. And it still has the coloring, but now you can just notice the clouds a bit more. And I don't know, kind of spooky, you know? So I thought that was interesting. Interesting enough to make a whole video? Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see it. Me make a short video? Crazy. Utterly crazy. But the other thing I noticed, so in the distance, I've been trying to replace these trees. That was kind of on the list because they are flat images. I think they're pretty effective, to be honest, like because they're all angled to where they look like trees, and they're far enough away that like it's not a big deal. Anyway, I had ported over the trees from Darkroot Garden, and I went through the trouble of like changing the MTD settings and then changing the textures and making sure they look like snowy. So I borrowed the textures from the actual trees here, and here's what I found. So by default, when you zoom in on these trees, they look like ass, right? Like these, that's terrible. Like, and now you're far away, yes, but that still looks like straight ass. Now let me load into my other project, my official, actual Dark Souls remastered project. Let's load up the Painted World, because there's actually a very simple fix to this. And now you'll see, are they a ton better? No, but it's a sizable increase in detail. And that was actually down to one very small change, that when you open up the 5100B0, you'll notice, which actually we can open it real quick. I do feel like that'd probably be more interesting. Let's borrow this one. I already have 2 of these folders open. Let's go into map M110000 and go to 5100, because it was actually really interesting. I've been looking at a lot of the object files, because inside these material settings and like what the actual like textures are stored at, you can find some cool secrets. And so the one thing I found when I was looking through the textures here is they were using M11, bush, 13, 11, and 12, right? So you go, okay, cool. Even though it's not actually a bush, it's a tree. They called it a bush for some reason. But I noticed originally they had M11 bush 12 underscore L. And that L is not used in Dark Souls Remastered normally. What that L represents is in the Prepare to Die edition, they had L variants of almost every texture, most textures, and they were a lower quality version. And Dark Souls Remastered got rid of this, for the most part, for everywhere else than the Painted World, apparently. And they didn't use the low-quality textures. If they were ever set to use, they would just do the high-quality version. So my simple fix was just to go here and change it to the standard versions without the L for the 11, 12, and 13. And, you know, now they actually use the higher quality texture. That was just an oversight that no one at QLock had switched that to a higher quality texture. Like, because these trees had already been set to use the higher quality. It's just the distant ones that they didn't end up switching. So I found that interesting. I was like, oh shit. I've been finding all kinds of weird oddities. That was really cool. Which I guess while I'm making this video, I'll talk about the other one. So let's unload Painted World and load up Anor Londo. I won't actually go there in the game because I can just tell this quick little story using the map itself. So let's fly through here and go to the, Big O. That's probably not his nickname, right? I don't think he would like that. Anyway, Ornstein, which I think regular Ornstein is inside of here. Nope, that's Smo. Oh, there's regular Ornstein. Because they actually do have different models. So there's 5270 and then there's 5271. I believe they have the same exact textures. They're just one's bigger, so they had to have a different fiber file for like the scaling on that. And then you have the different SMOs as well. But no, so Ornstein, stick with me, I promise this will make sense. So how the game works is that Ornstein here, because I've already upscaled the Ornstein set and ported it from Prepare to Die edition. So in theory, you'd get, my original thinking a while ago was like, oh, okay, so now Ornstein the boss will use that new armor, right? No, false. So the bosses and like the enemies and whatnot, they mostly pull their textures from the character folder, not the parts folder. And the parts folder is where I've done all the upscales and porting of Prepare to Die textures. So I went into Ornstein's set in his character textures, and I noticed something interesting. So they had a more accurate, better reflective specular map for boss Ornstein than the version we got on the personal set of armor we can buy. And the difference was in the luminance value, like how bright the specular map was, but also importantly, the specular map, we're going to go up in his crotch for a second. The specular map for the boss correctly had set certain portions not to reflect because they weren't reflective, like any cloth portions. And the one that we got, it was all reflective. So I'm not sure what happened if the right hand wasn't talking to the left hand, but they generated two different specular maps for the identical set of armor, but they gave the better one to the boss and then accidentally gave us the shitty one. So anyway, I ported over, of course, that specular map. This character's got Ornstein armor, right? Ayo, he does. You'd love to see it. I'm sure you can hear my D-pad. It's the loudest D-pad in existence. Thank you, Microsoft. Although I love your controller. But my God, can you make them quieter? Yeah, let's port to a better place to look here. Also, a new version of Dark Souls Remastered was released yesterday, I think. I just fucking forgot to mention it on the reaction video because I was super, I was in the zone on that one. Let's go Firelink Shrine, Bonfire. And yeah, new version, bug fixes, cool stuff. Go download it maybe if you want to. And of course, right after I released it, yeah, I found more bugs. And I was fixing more bugs. So, expect that. So we're in Firelink Shrine. My favorite place to show off armor because I just love how cozy it feels now. But yeah, they in this specular map, you can see it's a little bit more reflective. Just a little bit more detail. And then their chainmail portion is set to not be as reflective correctly. And so, yeah, kind of weird. I don't know why they had a different specular map, but that sort of opens a can of worms where I'm like, because what I'm doing now, among everything else, is I'm upscaling boss textures. Because I found out how to do that without crashing the game. It's really wonky and doesn't work the same way as Prepare to Die. But I'm upscaling boss textures. So, because there was a Golem guy in Sen's Fortress, and I was able to go up to 4K on his texture, because his texture at 2K looked pretty shitty. And it was one of the few cases where I was like, okay, I got to go to 4K by 2K instead of 2K by 1K resolution. And it actually looked really good. And I also have to check the boss textures from Prepare to Die edition, because there was a difference in this one. And I'm like, fuck, man. Okay, so I got to check Taurus Demon, I think I just did, and I checked the Prepare to Die, because it was a brighter texture for Prepare to Die. So once again, I got to go between the versions Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this weird, rambly, strange video on some weird quirks. And I feel like Doug DeMuro, if anyone watches him for car reviews, the many quirks and features of Dark Souls 1 and modding it. And because I tweeted about this, but essentially, modding Dark Souls 1, and specifically Dark Souls Remastered, you're basically playing an endless game of, did Q-Lock fuck this up? Did FromSoft fuck this up? Did I fuck this up? Or is it meant to be fucked up? And 70% of the time it's been me fucking something up, either months ago and I forgot about it, or I just currently fucked something up. And then 15% is FromSoft, and then 15% is Q-Lock. Because this game is unfinished, as Miyazaki has admittedly, like he said that. He's like, I'm kind of sorry it's an unfinished game in some ways. And so floating, items, mesh holes, fucking just weird mesh clipping. There's so many like little weird bugs, and Q-Lock just didn't fix any of them. So maybe they just didn't notice them. I don't know, because I didn't notice them for the first like fucking 20 playthroughs. So I get it. But anyway, thank you for watching. If you have any comments on anything I said in this video, go comment below. While I'm here, I did notice yesterday there were two people. This is an isolated incident, because also all of you guys everyone is lovely and great, but there were two people that were just battling it out in my comments section and calling each other names and shit. Like, don't do that. Be cool. Be nice to each other. Don't do that shit. I ended up blocking them from the channel. I think they can still comment, but no one will see it. So, joke's on you guys. But like, don't be toxic and weird, and don't attack each other, because not in my community. You can go elsewhere and do that if there's other comment sections that love that, but I don't. So, don't do that. We're cool here, We're chill. We're cool. That's the rules. All right, I'll catch you on the flippity flip.